please give a very warm welcome to Harry Kalymnios. Please grace the stage, Harry.
Thank you. Okay. Good evening. Good evening. Are you guys having a good time? Is this all right? Is this too loud? Yeah, perfect. All right. Hands up. Are you having a good time? Hands up. Are you having a good time? Say yes. Yes. All right. Brilliant. My name is Harry Kalymnios, expertly pronounced. Very rare that happens, so thank you so much. And yeah, I'm a coach, consultant, speaker on the topics of mindset, resilience, health, well-being, and what I call how to be superhuman. Now, being superhuman, I need to say, is not about holding your breath for 26 minutes, which, yes, it is a record, if you can believe that. And it's not about doing cartwheels down the street or anything like that. It's really about imagining yourself on your best day and then 10x in that. So being your best self, but not like once in a while, but more days than not. 8, 9 times out of 10. It's not realistic. I'm not here to say that you're going to be up all the time, because that's just not real. Okay? Life ebbs and flows. You have ups, you have downs, both periods of your life, but also periods of the day. Okay, so we're not all about that. I'm just going to, the way I'm going to run it tonight, we've got about 20-30 minutes. I'm going to give you a little bit about my background, my story, and then I want to really open it up a little bit more to understand maybe the challenges that you've got as well, and see if some of the things that I know I can help. So it's going to be a bit of a Ask Me Anything session as well. I'll just give you some background about me and how I came to be in all this. So, question was asked to me what I used to do before this world, and I used to work at the London Stock Exchange, and I used to do, so I wasn't anything glamorous, there was no trading or anything like that. I was IT project management. I did night shifts for a few years, I worked in service management, project management, and I ended up managing to get redundancy there during the whole financial crisis, or just a couple of years afterwards. And it led me to the personal development world, really, frankly. And I'd already been in it for a few years, but just on the outskirts, like reading books, attended the odd seminar, did the odd audio course. But around 2010, I got more deeply into it. And I went to an event, and I saw this amazing guy who was like twice my age and was absolutely rocking it on stage for 2 days straight. And I was like, I want to know what he's doing. And that led me down, not following him, because he was offering a course for 3 days at like £3,000. And one of his people that had been on there before, they had been on the course, and they said, well, you know what, mainly he just brings this author on, and it's this book. So I thought, well, okay, it's £3,000 on one side or £5 Amazon book on the other side. So I took the £5 Amazon book, and I read that, and I didn't necessarily actively make changes there, but it started to seep into the subconscious. Okay? And around that time, I was building, I'd done like an NLP course, and they started talking about when you start coaching clients, and I was thinking, I'd never planned to coach clients. And they were talking about having like a niche and thinking of a business. And I was thinking, well, yeah, I've always been into fitness, so I've always been quite active, yeah? So I'm not standing up here saying I used to be 26 stone and then suddenly I shed the weight, because that's not realistic for me personally, okay? I wasn't never like that. I was always into fitness though, but not necessarily health. So I equated fitness and health as the same thing, and it was only really, probably like 7 years ago, that I broke that kind of mindset and thought, actually, they are totally different things, and I'd much rather have health than fitness, okay? One can contribute to the other, but ultimately they're different things. And I started getting into this world of understanding that actually, because I left the stock exchange, I started going contracting, and I realized that if I didn't work, I didn't get paid. Okay? There's no sick pay if you're contracting. Hands up if anyone does contracting that works for themselves or has to earn their own money, yeah? So if you're not well, you're not going to get paid, right? So it became really, really important to me, this idea of having the energy, vitality, and health to actually work, to earn some money. And so I started getting quite deep into this subject. And as I was trying to think of a name for my brand, my company, I suddenly realized that, I mean, hands up here if you've ever, or you know anyone, so not necessarily you, that someone who's joined a gym in January, given up by February, started a new diet, stopped 6 weeks later. Okay, most people will have some sort of patterns, and we've our first speaker, Rita, was talking about it as well, really, and alluded to it, is that really what I found is that people are trying to change behaviors without trying to change the mindset behind the behavior first. And so that's why I called my brand and the first book I wrote, The Thought Gym, because it's really all about training the mind so the rest will follow, or train the mind so the body will follow. Because until you start changing the mindset that drives the behaviors in the first place, you're doomed to repeat the same cycles over and over. And whether that's health, well-being, or jobs, or finding a partner, anything, we have those same patterns, okay? You're deeply subconscious. So when Rita was talking about food and the comfort, okay, sometimes we gravitate towards a certain food because it might remind us of, you know, the way that our grandmother used to bake cookies or cakes, and we miss that person, and we see that, and it just, the smell, I mean, smell is one of the most potent things to prompt your memory. Okay, you walk past the bakery and you suddenly brings you back to being 12 years old, and your grandmother comforting you after people teased you at school. Now, you don't know this when you're walking past, but subconsciously it's in there, okay? And so that you gravitate towards that, or you eat to hide the feelings, because a lot of our feelings are coming from our gut. And if we put food in there, it's going to have another job to do, so it won't provide those feelings for us. So really it's all about changing the mindset. And for me, I changed my diet massively about 7 years ago, and none of it came from willpower. None of it came from discipline. And people still say to me, "Oh, you're so disciplined." I'm like, I'm not disciplined at all in that regard. I mean, I have a certain level of discipline, absolutely, but it's not like I have to resist certain things, because they're not just in my consciousness anymore. They're not in my awareness. Hands up if you've ever, when you were a kid, you liked, I'm trying to remember the sweets when I was a kid, but they were like Starbursts, or there were like those flying saucers. Any sweets like that. Remember, if you can, one of those sweets that you used to like when you were like 8 years old. Now, when you go into the newsagents to buy maybe your coffee or bag of crisps or whatever, do you actually see those sweets there now? Do you have to fight to resist those? Chances are no. That you're not even aware of them. Okay? You might be aware of the Mars bar, the Twix or something, but you're not aware of the ones that you once were, okay? Because this is not even in your awareness. And that's what it is for me when I changed the way I eat. Because if you start relying on willpower, start relying on discipline, it's going to wear out, okay? You're going to be so disciplined, like for breakfast, and so disciplined for lunch, and then you come home after a tough day, the commute, the trains, and you just want to veg out, Netflix, takeaway, whatever it is, okay? Because you've used up all that willpower and discipline to get you to that point. So we can't rely on that. So really we need to shift the mindset, and this is the whole purpose of the first book, is like, how do you shift the mindset? So some of you might be familiar with the neurological levels of Robert Dilts, okay? So basically, just to summarize it, there's different levels that you can make changes at. At the bottom level, you've got like your environment. So say, for example, you wanted to become healthier. You might put yourself in a different environment. You might put yourself in the gym, for example, if you believe that that's what's necessary for you, okay? And that's fine, and that might get you some change. But fundamentally, you're not changing levels higher up, so you're going to slip back. The next level's up about behavior. So your behavior might change. You start running after work instead of going to the pub after work, okay? And that's going to bring some change about, absolutely. But chances are that at some point you're going to slip back. You're going to keep yo-yoing. And if you've ever had this experience, then you understand what I'm talking about. Above that, we've got skills and capabilities. So you might learn a new skill. You might be able to, if you're using alcohol, for example, as a way to feel confident when you're around people at a networking event, you might learn a new skill on how to feel confident, okay? Whether that's breathing or some kind of relaxation technique, or even going and learning how to network properly, okay? And then that gives something, okay? But fundamentally, above that, you've got values and beliefs. So if you, for example, many people that I speak to think like, will say things like, and this might be you, I don't know, like, you know, eating healthy is boring, or it's hard, or it's expensive. So these are beliefs that you might have. Now, if you believe that, you fundamentally believe that, doesn't matter. Like, hands up if you know that an apple is probably better for you than a Big Mac. Yeah? Okay, we all know that, right? So no one really needs to be told for a large part of this what eating healthy is, or what being healthy is. I mean, there are nuances, absolutely, but we all know what to do, yeah? We just don't do what we know. That's the challenge. And it's because maybe we have a belief that actually it's going to be boring to eat that, or it's going to be more time consuming, or it's not going to be as much fun, or I'm going to be left out of my crowd, okay? That's something I had to deal with a lot as well, where you start to change your eating habits, you start to realize just how much food as a culture and how we connect with each other is so important, and it meant certain changes for me. So anyway, you need to look at those values, those beliefs, and start shifting the beliefs about what you think it means for you, okay? Because if I believed, for example, that I couldn't survive on like just vegetables and this that, and the other, because I, for example, and I'm not here to talk about diet, but or what's a good diet or a bad diet, but let's say I used to be a big meat eater. Okay, I used to eat it twice a day. I could never order anything that didn't have meat in it. It didn't make sense. Okay, if I'm going out to a restaurant, why would I order a salad? It doesn't make any sense. Waste of money. But in my view back then, okay, my beliefs have now changed around that. Okay, and I believe that I couldn't survive without meat. Okay, now I'm currently experimenting. It's been about 7 years, but without eating it. Okay, I don't know if that's going to be forever or not, and I've not put that restriction on myself, because a lot of the time if we say we can't do this, we can't be this, you know, we just want to do it more, right? If anyone says, you know, whatever you do, just don't look around at what she's doing to you right now. Like, some of you are like, what is she doing? She's on her phone. What is she doing? Okay, you know, what resists persists, as they say, so you want those things. So you've got your values and your beliefs that need to be looked at. And then above that, you've got what's called your identity, okay? So, for example, my dad was a smoker for 40 plus years. Now, obviously, everyone who's a smoker knows it's not probably the best thing for them, okay? We don't need to tell them that, okay? They know that. But he'd been smoking since he was 18, and no matter what we say or do or anything, it wasn't going to change his mind, okay? It wasn't until he had a triple heart bypass surgery that he then decided to stop smoking. But what was interesting, and the reason I bring it up, is that he didn't have any challenges with stopping smoking. Not one craving, nothing, okay? And his whole identity of who he was had changed. Okay, so identity is right at the top, above your values and beliefs. And so he didn't believe he was an ex-smoker, he just believed he was a non-smoker, okay? And so if you believe, for example, oh, I'm a smoker that just hasn't smoked for 6 months or a year, you're always going to still have this conflict, okay? And maybe you get drunk one time and you're in a smoky room and all your friends are saying, oh, I'll just have a cigarette. You're more likely to go back to it. Now, if you put my dad in really drunk in a smoky environment in a pub, he's still not going to be tempted with a cigarette, okay? Because his identity's changed around it. And so once you start changing your identity of who you are as a person, then everything else becomes easier. Okay? And I think this is what was being alluded to at the first talk. Okay? You change who you are, everything else becomes a lot easier. Okay? Okay. One more thing I'll explain, and then I want to open up some questions here as well around maybe some practical ideas as well, is this thing called the tier model, or the thought cycle, as I call it. So everything in this world starts with a thought, okay? The idea for LoveX started with a thought from Scott, okay? The idea for the chair that you're sitting on started in someone's mind, okay? These thoughts lead to some kind of emotion, okay? That emotion will lead, and I'll illustrate this with an example to make it clearer, will lead to some kind of action, okay? And then that leads to some kind of result. Okay? So there's 4 areas, okay, and it becomes a bit of a circle. So thoughts lead to emotions, lead to an action, lead to a result. So for example, has anyone here, by show of hands, either thought to run or run a marathon or something like that? Yeah, a few of you, okay? So let's take 2 people, for example. Maybe it's tonight after a couple of drinks. You're in here and you're like, where are we now? It's July. Okay, so we might say, okay, next year I'm going to run the London Marathon. Yeah, you and your friend, you've had 3 drinks, and you're like, okay, it's a really good idea to run the London Marathon. We're going to get fit. We need a goal. We need something to work towards. So that's the thought. But 2 of you, first person, they think, well, you know what? I've not exercised since I was at school, since I was 16. Okay, I'm really rubbish at this sort of stuff. And so the feeling that is generating is one of maybe regret, maybe apprehension, maybe being scared, maybe being overwhelmed, okay? Now that thought leading to that feeling will lead to some kind of action, or in this person's case, person A will call her, well, let's give her a name, let's call her Jo, Okay, so apologies if there's anyone called Joe in the audience. But let's say Joe is like, okay, so she leads to some kind of inaction. So she procrastinates about her training, she leaves it to the last sort of 6 weeks, and then she does the marathon. Okay, so that leads to a result, and the result ends up being that she ends up, pulling her hamstring, maybe finishes it, but barely finishes it, is in absolute pain and agony for weeks. And then that just reinforces the idea, the thought in her mind that she's no good at exercise, that she's no good at these challenges, okay? Now her friend, okay, let's call her, I'm going to call her Nikita, actually. Only reason because she popped into my head, it's my niece's name. But Nikita, so Nikita over the other side. So she also has never run a marathon before. She hasn't exercised either really since school. But she's thinking to herself, well, you know what, I've actually never built my own property before, but I did that, okay? I changed careers, like in my mid-30s, I did that, okay? So I did all these things, so I think I can probably do this, right? And she gets a bit excited. She's like, okay, it's another challenge. It's another thing that I can do to show that I can adapt and do things that are good for me. So then her action is, yeah, she buys the running magazine, she buys the running training, she hires the coach, she joins the club. She starts not going out drinking after work. She starts, maybe yoga to improve her stretching. She starts doing all these actions. So when she comes to run it, yeah, she's not breaking any world records, but she gets round it, no real dramas, is not, achy for a day or two afterwards, but not like her friend. And then suddenly it reinforces the idea, okay, I can do this, okay? And so she has this pattern, okay? So this is kind of the thought cycle, and this is why the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, because we end up in these perpetual loops. Does that make sense to people? Okay, good. Now, how to interrupt this, okay, this cycle, okay? You can change your thoughts. It's quite challenging, okay? But there are ways to do it, and a lot of people here have done their NLP and things. You can change the pictures in your head. For example, I used to love McDonald's, okay? Anyone here, not now, but maybe used to love McDonald's or something like that? I grew up on junk food, right? In the first 14 years of my life, I was pretty much junk food, right? I even got a badge on my 14th birthday saying I built this body on junk food. So my sister gave it to me, true story. So I'm there, I'm with you, I know that, okay? But then you can you can change the way that the patterns are. So now when I walk past the McDonald's, for some reason I've changed the picture of the Golden Arches, and it reminds me of Muscle Beach in LA or California or somewhere, yeah. I don't know why, I'd never been there before, but I created like those, the arches, like bent dumbbells or something like that, in my head. So I created this picture, like just little NLP tools and techniques. So now when I walk past, usually, in fact, the only time I ever go in now is to use the toilets, okay? So, but I was more tempted back in the day, and this was even like, 6 years ago when I'd stopped to eat meat, I'd still go in there for chips and things. So, but I changed the way I'm thinking. So you can change the way you're thinking, and that's kind of partly what I talk about in the book. Another way is change your actions, okay? The biggest problem I find is that people wait to feel like they're ready to do something before they do it, okay? I don't feel like going for a run. I don't feel like this. I'll let you into a little secret. I really, a lot of the time, don't feel like exercising or don't feel like doing things, okay? And most successful people that I know, they also don't like to do the things that unsuccessful people don't like to do as well. It's just they do them anyway, okay? And when you start to do the thing, then you start to feel the thing, okay? So has anyone here, hands up by show of hands, if you've been to like a party or an event or something like that, you haven't been having a great time, but your friend has like just pulled you out on the dance floor, you started to dance a bit, and then you started to enjoy it a bit more. Am I the only one? Hands up, anyone? Yeah, okay, so I'm not the only one, good. All right, and this is a classic example of doing something so that you then feel a certain way, okay? So, if you've gone for a run, I would say, yeah, your objective is to run a 10K. It's just like, okay, no, let's just run for 2 minutes. Let's just do 2 minutes of running and then I'll come back. Just start doing the thing, start taking the action, and then, yeah, maybe you do 2 minutes, and then fine, you've done your goal. If you do 3 minutes, you've exceeded your goal. But if you aim for a 10K, which is going to take you an hour, you come back after 40 minutes, you're going to be disappointed with yourself because you haven't fulfilled things. So start doing an action, any kind of action that's going to move you forward in some way, and it will start to kind of bring your thinking round as well, okay? And then you can change the other two bits at some points as well. You can change how you feel about things with certain techniques as well, but also maybe you get a fluke result somewhere which will change your thinking. So maybe, I remember one time I thought I had never won these competitions, and I was at this stag do and we were doing clay pigeon shooting, and it was at the time when I was getting a bit more knowledgeable about how to breathe and focus on things, and I did the clay pigeon shooting and I hit all of them and I won. I say won, whether it was a competition or not, but I hit the most amount. And so that may have been like a fluke result, and then that led me to believe, actually, you know what, maybe I am capable of succeeding and winning in these kind of competitions, okay? So you can break the cycle anywhere, but you know, usually the action part is a good point, or the thinking part, okay? So changing your beliefs and values and identity, which is a lot easier said than done, okay? It's easy for me to stand up here and say it, but really you need to create a drive and a reason why, which I think we were talking about earlier, a reason why you need to make a change, okay? Why it's so important. I'm conscious of time, and I want to actually ask some questions because I've been talking a lot of time. So I just want to know, what are some of the challenges that you currently face, or what is something that you want clarity on or understanding about, or what can help you, do you think, move forward? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on a challenge to a 30 days plan diet, and I'm overdue. I'm on a 35, and I was cheating the other day on me. Actually, 1 week ago, first time I think, too, in egg. So I feel guilty about I cheat, you know.
Oh, right.
I don't know what to do because I know I did NLP. I'm a life coach. I'm coaching myself, self-coaching,
Yeah.
but still I feel, what, man? I can't give up on egg. So I feel a bit guilty of that.
Okay.
How do you shift,
I say don't feel guilty. I mean, like, feeling guilty, because it was a bit like what we were talking about before, where you say you can't look behind you, right? And suddenly you can't do anything. I've never followed a diet. The reason for this, that I think the diet, one of the reasons that diets don't work, you said, I'm doing this 30-day plan, right? Yeah, so you've got this 30-day plan, which is good in a way to kick off, but I always say the challenge is when you get to this 30-day plan and you get to day 30, suddenly your mind has gone, good, I've done it. I'm going to relax, yeah? I'm not going to, yeah, and then you go back to type, okay? If you're going to do a plan like that, I would suggest that 30 days is always to the start of something, okay? So it's a little bit of a kind of a nuanced approach to it, but when we say, okay, I'm on this thing for 30 days, I'm on this 30-day juice fast, I'm doing blah, 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 we don't often think beyond that, okay? And when we get to that end point, we're like, I've succeeded, I've resisted sugar all month, I've resisted this, that, the other. I think personally, like, small steps, right? So for example, if you were to have like sugar in your coffee, or you drink 4 cups of coffee a day, let's say, and you want to reduce coffee, don't go from 4 cups of coffee a day to 0, or don't go from like having loads of sugar in your tea to nothing, okay? I would just take 10% off, okay, for a week, and then maybe see how that goes, then 10% the next time. And the same thing with the diet thing, is that just, yeah, absolutely, like small incremental steps, so you can barely notice it. And then when you do have these issues, or what you perceive as being issues, firstly, don't ever say, I can never have this thing, okay? I've never said I can never eat meat again, or fish, or dairy, okay? Or anything like that, okay? I can choose to go out right now and have something like that if I want, okay? And sometimes there will be things that I'll eat where people might perceive them as being not healthy, because I'm not going to eat 100% of the time healthy. I'm not going to resist. If I want a bag of crisps, I'll eat a bag of crisps. If I want chocolates, I'll eat chocolates, okay? I will make better choices within that, so I'll look for better sourced ingredients, but I'm not going to necessarily restrict myself. And I think that's the challenge, is we put all these pressure on ourselves, and then and it's a pressure that's coming from yourself. And I would just say, you know, and rather than recognizing the stuff we have done, we're looking at the things that we screwed up on. It's like, I did 21 days and I ate egg, and I'm going to hold on to this idea of egg idea for the next 2 weeks, whereas you just did 21 days where you did something great, fine, have a bit of egg, move on next day. You know, one bad result doesn't have to make a bad week or a bad year, okay? Does that make sense? Okay, good. More questions? Because you're all here for a reason. There's some kind of challenge that's going on. And I know people are nervous, and they're like, I don't want to ask. Yeah?
Do you have a morning and or an evening routine?
Oh, God, yes, I do. And we don't have enough time to go into it, to be fair. Because it's about 3 hours long, the morning routine, if I was to fully do it. But let's just say, very quickly, so I will get up and I will read a passage of a book that I've been reading every day for the last 7 years while I'm in the bathroom. Then I will go prep my veg for my juices and smoothies, let them soak, go back, meditate for 15 minutes, then jump on a rebounder, which is a mini trampoline, for about 15 minutes. Then, depending, I might do like half an hour to an hour of actual proper exercise, let's say maybe yoga or something like that. Maybe I won't, depending on if I've got up a bit later. Then shower, make the juice, make the smoothies whilst listening to like a podcast. I think there's a few extra bits in there that I've missed off, but I will be putting those into the next book that I'm writing, because that's one of the things I'm writing at the moment, is a book based on the philosophy which is represented by this diagram, which are the 4 forces that contribute to health and well-being, because mindset is the first pillar, if you like, and the other 3, actually I do have, you can pick up some free cards afterwards which have got them on there. It won't make a huge amount of sense to you, but there are 3 other pillars where I looked at all the changes that I'd made in my life and recognised a lot of people think of diet, exercise and possibly sleep as things that are important, but there are tons and tons of other things that are important as well, and that's what I called the leadership beat model, which are the 4 areas, but within that is routine. Yeah.
Curiosity, what time do you get up and how many hours sleep do you get?
Okay. On a good day, like my normal waking up time should be like usually 6 o'clock. Okay, but it depends. Like last night, for example, I went to bed later than I would like to, and I knew it was one of the rare times that I knew what time I was going to go to bed. Normally, I don't know what time I'm going to go to bed because I tend to stop looking at the time at 9 o'clock. I don't have any clocks in my house. I just have like a watch like this that I turn round. The reason for that is, what's the last thing that most people do before they go to bed? They check the phone, they realise, oh, I've got to get up in 6 hours, they get stressed, they have a shot of cortisol going into their system because they're not going to get to bed enough. There's nothing you can do at that time, right? So you might as well just go to bed. So, but let's say typically I start at 9 o'clock to have my unwind routine, okay, in the evening. So I'm aiming usually to go to bed like 10:30 until 6, that's about 7.5 hours. It's about 5 90-minute cycles overnight. Everyone in this room needs between 7 and 9 hours sleep, okay? If you think, oh no, I'm one of those people that can do 6, the chances are more likely that you get hit by lightning than you need 6. The amount of people that can thrive on less than 6 hours sleep a night, rounded to a whole number, expressed as a percentage, is 0, okay? So it's like a ridiculously small amount. So that's one of the things that you should be looking at, because if you do have lack of sleep, your hormones will go out of whack, yeah? You'll get more of the hormone called ghrelin, okay? Think ghrelin like a gremlin, okay? You know the gremlins, you're not supposed to feed them. They kind of multiply after midnight and all that, okay? Ghrelin is your hunger hormone. If you don't sleep enough, you're going to have more of that and less of leptin, the leprechaun that I like to call him, okay? And that's your satiety hormone, which means you're going to be more likely to make those bad food choices if you don't sleep well. You also, an hour before midnight's worth 2 after, so yeah.
Do you wake up naturally then, or do you set an alarm?
Okay.
You don't even look at your watch.
Yeah, okay. I wake up with an alarm, like a daylight alarm clock. So it gradually brings light into the room, okay? And one of the best things you can do for your sleep is to have a consistent wake-up time, even on the weekend. I'm not as good with that, because sometimes I'll wake up at 6 and I'll go, you know what, actually it's more important for me to sleep an extra hour and a half than it is to get up and do the thing I want to do, because I don't feel like my body's rested enough, okay? But yeah, in an ideal world, if you could just wake up naturally, fine. That's probably a good way of doing it. But I would suggest like a daylight alarm clock, not having your phone or anything like that, because that can, it gradually brings light into the room. So it rises your cortisol levels gradually, rather than like a shock system. Okay. Yeah.
When you were changing your behaviour 7 years ago, you said it was, how did you deal with saying no to the social going out?
Okay.
Saying no to certain things and
Okay.
go home.
Yeah, firstly, it's not really about saying no. There's 2 things I would say very quickly, because I know that we're running out of time. One is that at some point you need to make a decision in life about whether you're going to live life by your standards or someone else's. Okay? So are you going to be like, you know, hungover, you're going to be this, that, and the other, just because someone that you barely even know at work is saying, oh, you know, don't be such a loser, start out, right? And you keep doing that, okay? It's a bit like the whole Marty McFly thing where he gets called a chicken or something like that, or a yellow belly or whatever it is, and, you know, you live up to other people's standards, right? Or your own. The second thing is this idea of future self, okay? Which is what I use a lot. So it's seeing yourself in the future, whether that's 10 minutes in the future, one day in the future. So I know, for example, like alcohol, I'm not really great with it. I know certain alcohol I can handle, but I see myself, like other people will see themselves having fun, letting go. I see myself bent over the toilet, throwing up, like when I see the alcohol, like literally that there, I'll be like, that's what I see. So I jump to the future. Or you might jump to the future 10 minutes time or after you've eaten that meal. And it doesn't mean you don't eat the meal, because sometimes, like last night, I ate something that I knew wasn't going to be great for me, but I knew that I wasn't going to be going out afterwards, I was going to be going home. I knew I didn't have much to do today in terms of that, so I saw my future self saying, okay, I can cope with not feeling as good. Okay, so use your future self and live by your standards, not other people's. Okay, yeah, one question there.
That's the book you mentioned at the beginning, the one that...
Oh, right. Yeah, I'm a bit reluctant to mention it usually because it gets a bit of controversy, but it was called the pH Miracle Diet, Robert Young. But it's got some good stuff in it, and that kind of started my path, yeah. But, yeah. And I think we're out of time, is that right? Are we wrapping up? 1 minute, okay, so 1 minute, one last question, if there is a last question.
Would you mind just mentioning the name of the book? Sorry, I didn't quite catch
I just said the pH Miracle, the pH Miracle. But I'm obviously around all evening. If you do want, and you're curious about changing the mindset, this book takes you through chapters on your values, your beliefs, bringing a reason why you need to make changes. My second book is more of a general health and well-being book, which is a light version of the model that I was alluding to earlier. You can buy a copy at the back if you want. If not, please leave your email address and we can stay connected. Grab one of these cards as well on the table. And that's it. Thank you. Cool. Thank you.
Love you.